So almost a year ago to the day, we were seeing images like this.
No, they're going to go in this way, they're going to rise out. Let's work their way closer.
Are they actually helping him up? Oh my god. Going for his bag? Ah, he just took something from his bag? Dickhead. Fucking monster.
And now we're a year on, and what's changed? Roll the titles. So during the summer of 2011, the UK descended into what can only be described as chaos. There were certain things that got highlighted which needed highlighting quite badly. And as much as I'd love to be able to say the government, the police and whoever have changed it, they haven't. And this is why. So these are a couple more of the images that we were left to see last year.
Unbelievable. So bad.
Now, when I watch that, I do look at it and think, okay, that's like, them people are just scum of the earth, you know? They're not nice people. And although some of them got caught, it wasn't the majority, let's face it. But there is other faults here. You know, I mean, we saw that shutters in a shop are no longer suffice. They're not. In my opinion, they haven't been for years. But companies over here tend not to really spend loads on security, especially when it comes to times like rioting, because they've put themselves into a state now where it's like, well, we'll protect ourselves a little bit, but we've got insurance. Well, who pays for your insurance? You know, you put in a load of claims. Who has to pick up the bill? It's everyone in the country. So, yeah, that really annoyed me. So what I want you to have a look at is this.
Dramatic footage has emerged of a raid on a Dublin jeweller's. The owner has warned other businesses to step up their security.
A man is seen taking an iron bar from his tracksuit outside the shop. Footage from inside shows the man kicking in the door to gain access. The customer quickly leaves as Martin triggers a panic alarm which fills the shop with smoke.
There's been a lot of robberies within the Irish jewellery business. Anybody watching should beef up their security.
You see there, it's a device which, if a store is broken into, it fogs the store out. The fogger keeps going until it either has to reheat itself, which is like, with machines that powerful, it's literally a couple of seconds, and then it'll start pumping the fog out until it is deactivated by either the police or one of the store owners, but you can't see where you're going in that store. Now you tell me, when you're seeing images like what we saw a couple of minutes ago, where people are breaking into stores, stealing mobile phones, shoes, the safe, cash machines, everything, you telling me a simple fog machine wouldn't do the trick there? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Apparently that is. Apparently these big chain companies are trying to say that wouldn't work. Well, not one of you tried it, so how the hell would you know? I mean, yes, okay, it's expensive technology, and, you know, it's a system that does require quite a lot of setup and settings and blah, blah, blah. But once it's in, you're good to go. You wouldn't have to worry about too much, especially if your store was going to get robbed like it did. One of the other main flaws that we saw was a police system that couldn't cope. I mean, years ago here in the UK, the police used to be something not to be feared, but to be respected. You had respect for the police officers, and that's gone. You know, the amount of people that get arrested these days, and they're not afraid to, like, spit at police officers, abuse them, physically abuse them. It's crazy. Like, I'd say a lot of the country here don't have respect for the police. And whether that's mismanagement of the police, it's to do with issues like racism and homophobia and that sort of thing, which police forces around the world have been guilty of, but that's to do with the management, not the actual individual police officers, but that's a different story. What we actually saw was a police service in the UK that couldn't cope. It was mismanaged, even during that time. And normally for me, I am one of the ones to go, well, actually, you know what, you should have a little bit of respect for your police officers, but apparently I'm the only one saying that at the moment in this country. They should have respect, because if you need them and your life's in danger, the police will be there. Why wouldn't you give them respect for that alone? Seriously. So, how couldn't the police cope? Well, look at it this way. When the UK riots first started, it was in London. That's under, what are they called? The Metropole Police. Now, the Metropole Police didn't do anything the first night of the riots. That's common knowledge. They didn't do anything. They turned up, they blocked off a road. That was it. You know? That's when the looting started. That's when fires were starting. It's when the craziness started. But because the police were seen to do nothing there, it spread. And it spread like wildfire, literally. You know? So what happened with the Metropole? Well, the Metropole actually called for police from other services, including Liverpool and Manchester, like near where I am, to go down and support them. When in fact, their own cities came under attack. Where's the sense in that? You know, they've got work to do up here. Leave them to get on with that work. You know, the Metropole Police needs to sort themselves out. Now, the police failed in not so much that they didn't put themselves out there, because yes, the police officers were in danger, and I'm sure there was quite a lot of injuries that, you know, didn't make it to the news because blah, blah, blah. But for me, personally, I would have had the laws changed before the riots actually started. You know, I would have actually changed the laws to make it back to the police being in charge. You know, and it's say, if there's a riot situation, go and use rubber bullet guns. I don't care. Use tear gas, use the water cannons, use everything you've got. Stop it from happening. And if on that first night of the rioting, it had been seen, you know, oh my god, the police are being quite hard here, the message would have got through. Don't go out there and riot. Simple as. The message would have got out there, but it didn't. So it spread and spread and spread and spread and spread. Now, the other failing was with the government. And as far as I'm aware, it is only the government that can actually start the ball rolling on this. But why wasn't the army called in? For 5 nights, the whole of the UK, let alone the rest of the world, saw, no matter what force, the police didn't cope. The shops still got looted, people still got injured, unbelievable amounts of damage was getting done, police were getting things thrown at them, they couldn't cope with that alone. But here's the funny thing, the army are there to be called into these sorts of situations. They are trained, you know, and if the army come out in a tank, are you seriously going to argue with them? No. So, why weren't the army brought in? And why didn't we have the tear gas canisters? Why didn't we have the water cannons? You want to know why? Because they're actually kept over in Northern Ireland. To bring them over, it takes, like, as far as I'm aware, it does take like a day or two to arrange it. What the hell? Why don't we have decent riot things over here? You know? What's wrong with that? It's just, it's completely messed up.
go. Watch your back. From that way.
So what happened after the riots? Well, because there was so much chaos and lack of control, the government kind of turned round and said, okay, if you're connected with these riots, you're for it. And in a certain sort of way, yes, they did up the sentencing. For me, not enough. I don't want these people on the streets. You know, get rid of them. Like, get them out of the country. I don't care. They're scumbags. Don't want them. But they didn't do that. They didn't deport anyone, unfortunately. But what they did do was to give stronger sentencing. And then they looked at social media, which is something which I'd been calling out for a long time. So, what actually changed? Well, there was, I think, like kind of like a prime example was, I think it's 2 males set up a group on Facebook, calling for people to join in violence and basically riots in their area. Now, through Facebook, the police managed to find them. They found where they lived. They got them, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was something like a joint sentence of like 6 years or something like that. I think 4 or 6 years. It wasn't loads of time, but they'd only posted about it on Facebook, and that's the sentence that they got. So you can see, yeah, the police were kind of good with that sort of thing. But, you know, Greater Manchester Police turned round a couple of weeks after the riots, and they said, look, we've got to face facts. Yes, we are spending thousands every day looking for these people, and we will find as many as possible, but we've got to face the fact we're not going to find everyone. And they came under fire so much for that. It was like, you know, these chief bosses of the police going, well, how dare you say that? And it's like, actually, no, they're being realistic. They won't find anyone. Well, they won't find everyone, should I say. They did find some people. But they won't find everyone involved. They never will. It's the same with every riot situation, which is why the laws needed changing. I mean, did you know, little fact here, that if in a riot situation and a person's got their face covered, the police actually couldn't remove that? But it got said afterwards in Parliament, and I agree this should happen, and as far as I'm aware, it still hasn't come into force, but the police should be able to take off a person's face mask. You know, if they're in a riot situation, they want to know who you are. It makes investigating afterwards more easy. Dead easy, because you've got a picture of them. But it means that a police officer is actually close enough that time to arrest that person for doing whatever they're doing. And this is something which has boggled my mind for years. And again, I think it's something I would change if I was in charge of the police. But why don't they arrest people at riots? You'll notice that in that video, not one person is seen to be getting arrested. In fact, you've got quite a lot of people in that area taking part in the looting. Can I ask, how many police officers did you see? Yeah, exactly. You could probably count them on one hand. That's disgraceful. But anyway, I digress.
scuffing around there, getting all arsey.
So I wanted to leave this video with a little bit of a happy ending, and that is that during the riots, when the trouble eventually spread up to Manchester and Liverpool and that sort of thing, we got it more on our doorstep and we could see what was happening. Now for me, I've kind of got a bit more respect for Greater Manchester Police because, you know, I've had to use them several times in the past. You know, the officers that I've come into contact with in the past, even on the horses and that sort of thing, they are quite friendly police officers. You know, you can talk to them on a night out. If you're on a night out and they're there, talk to them. They don't care. But they're a nice force to talk to, but you don't take the piss out of them. You're about to see why. So let me kind of set up the scene for you here. The message got sent out across the UK and it said, there is riots all over the UK. Go home. If you don't need to be out on the streets, if you don't need to be driving, go home. But people didn't go home. So the police kind of were doing more different things. So here's the lesson to be learned. If a police officer tells you to get off your bike, or the police officer will take you off your bike. Enjoy.
Oh.